Afikuto, boo! Okay, perfect blue.
Who are you?
Welcome to Future Movie Gems. This is Jordan.
This is Tatiana.
We're about to talk about a wonderful show. And I totally butchered. I apologize if I sounded very insensitive to the Japanese language, but this movie is amazing and I love it so much. And I just wanted to say that this movie is crazy. It reminds me a lot of, I was telling you about it the other night. I can see it. Michael Caine. He's a serial killer.
Oh, I don't know.
It's multiple personality disorder.
Oh, yeah. You said this is like another movie with multiple whatever.
Well, it's a very played out idea, especially today. But I mean, this did come out all the way in 1997, and it's like early internet. So I love this idea. Like, there's so many things I was thinking of while I was watching this. Oh, it's called Dressed to Kill, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And I was totally thinking of the Nick Cage quote when he's trying to come up with a script, and his kind of dork brother creates these serial killer scripts, and they're usually about somebody with multiple personality disorder.
Wait, we needed to tell everyone this. We can't help but spoil. Spoiler alert.
An adaptation. Yes, for people that don't like serial killers and stuff and don't have a problem with some mature content, this is a very fun movie.
Yeah, and we'd recommend that you'd watch it before listening to this, if you're cool with all that.
Yeah, and it's not like, I know maybe when you look it up, you'll be like, oh, anime, ugh. Like, I'm not a huge anime fan, but there's certain ones that I'm okay with, like Death Note, because it's more grounded in reality. Like,
I thought you said that this was not anime. This is animated, but it's not anime.
Well, it technically is made by, it's a Japanese...
animated. So I was right. It is anime?
I don't know. I don't really know what qualifies.
It doesn't matter.
It's an animation film.
Yes.
It's animated.
But it looks very realistic, and it's very grounded in real life. And you were just saying there's another movie that's grounded that you like?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a TV series called Death Note. I'd love to watch it with you sometime. And it's just about a detective. It's, I mean, pretty not really similar to this, but that's more of like cat and mouse, detective trying to catch the villain. This one's more, oh my goodness, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like half the time you don't know if she's dreaming or if she... And it got Tatiana first, and I was laughing at her. I'm like, I got
They
the movie.
got you.
And then it got me. And then...
Yeah, just like various times, if you watch, you'll know what we're talking about. Like, where you're like, oh, I think this is real life. And then, oh, no, she was dreaming.
Yeah, it's so
Or
fun.
no, it was the film. Because they're filming a film within the film.
And I loved going into this movie not knowing a thing about it. I just went in like, what is going on? And I was like, there's this like eerie undertone throughout the film. And I love these kind of movies because... And I've heard of this movie just because people like Darren Aronofsky and Christopher Nolan, they usually have like just clips kind of paying homage or however you say that word to this director by showing clips that are very similar, like the girl in the bathtub and she's screaming in this movie. She's like, you bastages. And in Requiem for a Dream, the girl from Maverick, I forget her name, but she's in the tub screaming just after her life has been going totally downhill and she's just made some really bad choices and she's not proud of. And similar to this movie, it's like she made essentially a choice that led her down this path, and it's like she can't quite get out of it. But the fun part is you don't know if that's her that's feeling this or if it's this crazy girl stalker.
Well, we don't know till the very end that there's a crazy girl stalker.
Yeah, and you don't know.
It was a huge surprise. It got me good at the very end, and I was like, okay, wow, this is a great movie.
Well, the best part is her life and the show she's in are so similar. And so all the time, like, she'll be saying things, and all of a sudden they'll be like, and cut. And you're like, oh, shoot, that was, like, in the movie. Or she'll wake up, and you're like, oh, did that actually happen? Or is she going completely crazy? Because she's, like, battling internally. Well, it's so fun. So there's, like, two people, maybe three people that are battling all the same thing that she is battling, which is, like, so she's battling internal. Well, there's so many things I want to talk about. Like, there's people I feel like living vicariously through her because of how famous she is. Like, you know, all these people that are obsessed with her. And it's so interesting because this movie came out, you know, so long ago when early internet, and yet she was essentially following and almost idolizing herself. Like, she's like, I wish I could have what this person has. Like, she was reading a biography about herself that somebody else was writing about her, and yet she seemed to almost covet that.
Oh, interesting.
And find that so fascinating because it's like it's this total age we live in now. It's like these people create. You can watch. There's so many documentaries about like kids that create these fake profiles, or we just watched that one girl that created that fake profile. She was catfishing.
Oh yeah.
In the movie Catfish.
Catfish.
Yeah, and she was living through this other person or this person she created, and it was completely fake. And I feel like that happens a lot today. Even the people that are quote unquote having these perfect lives and, you know, perfect kids, perfect family, perfect everything, and they're on the perfect vacations and everything looks so amazing, you know, the Instagramming people or whatever.
I love that you said that. It's making the movie and the overall message that I'm taking away from it all come together, because I wasn't thinking about how she was like coveting almost that persona portrayed on the blog.
But that's another thing, and I don't mean to cut you off, but that is also interesting is you don't know if it's her or if it's this psycho serial killer.
Yes.
Because you don't, you don't, because she puts on the wig and then she suddenly becomes
but I think
Mima.
it's pretty clear the times when it's really Mima, when she first discovers the blog, it's pretty clear.
Good point.
She's like, whoa, they knew which store I went to? How do they know so many things about me? Turns out it's because it's one of her agents that is this crazy lady with multiple personalities.
And I'm so excited to watch this movie again because I'm wondering if, because there's like fish and she keeps forgetting to feed them and they sometimes are dead and sometimes aren't. And so I don't know, is she replaced them or is this like a director's attention to detail because this movie is so detailed? Mm-hmm. I wonder if that is a way to essentially say whether or not she's dreaming or if she isn't. It's the same thing with the whole top spinning in Inception, where they spin the top and you don't know if it falls. Like, is Leonardo DiCaprio in a dream? And this movie, there's these fish, and sometimes they're dead and sometimes they're not. And it's like, oh shoot, is that a way to tell like this is her not dreaming because maybe the fish are dead, and every time you see a dead fish, that means she's actually awake.
Yeah.
And she's not in a dream. And that's the fun part, is it kind of bounces in between dreams and reality, and it's bouncing between this other person dressing up as her too, and you don't know like what's real and what's not, and it plays on your, and she starts to go crazy and you start to feel a little bit crazy. You're like, oh my gosh. And every time it says and cut, and then the first time Tatiana's like, oh my gosh, I thought that was real. Mm-hmm. So good. I like love this movie, and I can see why it was 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Holy cow, it's crazy. Yeah. And I remember when it first started, Tatiana was like, this has 100%, but then later as the film went on, you're like, I can see that.
I told you when it was finished that I got to a certain point towards the end that I was like, this really has 100%. I hope it all comes together at the end, because right now I'm like, really? But then as soon as they revealed the roomie was this, you know, this impersonator basically, and then it was like, oh my goodness, so many things are coming together, and my brain was spinning, and I was like, okay, I see why it has 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a film, like, I'm just like, people need to see it. It's crazy. It's good. I mean, at least for me, because I love serial killer movies, and I feel like this is kind of like top-notch serial killer. And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, this makes so much more sense why, like, Christopher Nolan likes dream-like sequences and messing with reality, because he's really into this movie. Like, he's one of those directors and it totally makes sense, because I watched this and I'm like, oh my gosh. And why also Darren Aronofsky is an amazing, like, his films are very trippy. And, I mean, he's definitely taken... I just feel like, because I was listening to an interview today, and Martin Scorsese says once in a while, if he's ever feeling like he needs inspiration, he'll go and watch like directors he can kind of go back to, ones that are so good, and essentially the more you watch them, the better they get, and that you can learn from them and essentially get ideas and help your creative juices flow. Because there's certain films that like make me think like, oh, cinema's dead. And then there's other films I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is why I want to make movies. This is why I love and have a passion for film.
Yeah. Well, and this included amazing art and, like you said, a lot of attention to detail. And you kept commenting on these amazing cuts between scenes. And I agree. It helped with the story. It helped, like, play little tricks on the audience, you know.
Yes, I mean...
camera, quote-unquote, cuts, but it wasn't really cameras. It's animated.
Yeah, there was one when, like, Mima got attacked by the guy that looked a little bit deformed, and then all of a sudden it showed the lady close her trunk, and it made you think, oh my gosh, did she just get thrown in that trunk? And then it
and then
zooms
it shows
out.
and it's not that guy. It's like, okay, they switched to a different storyline, different people right now.
Yeah, it's Rumi, and it wasn't Mima and the guy.
Yeah.
They also do that, like, the quote you quoted from Who Are You? She was trying to figure that out, and oh my goodness. And there was an amazing shot when she'd say like the guy outside the car, and he's like, Mima's room. And all of a sudden, it showed a cut. All of a sudden, like the voice was still saying Mima's room, right as it cut to outside her window looking in, like you're a creeper, like watching. It's like somebody is watching her.
Yeah.
And you get that vibe, and that the words kind of echoed, and it like rings in your ear, and you're like, ew, I got this like really disturbing feeling like she's being watched by somebody. And especially when she opens up that blog and reads, and it's like almost very personal things. It's a very fun, you mentioned it while we were watching it, you're like, this is kind of like, you don't always think about the creepers that you have to deal with when you become famous.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because we found out later, I don't think anyone actually was peeking into her room. But yeah, the director and everything about the film was implying that, oh, we better be careful. She better keep her curtains closed because someone is creeping in and filming her. But like, maybe they were, but it was never talked about later, like that was included in the blog. It was just pictures of her at a grocery store, not in her room, right?
Well, yeah, it's ingenious storytelling because they only tell you what you need to know, and they also only lean into the facts, like the most important things that you need to tell in your story, and then they leave all the ambiguous stuff to essentially psychologically mess with your head. And there's a lot of moments like that, and the best part is they never say if somebody's actually watching her, and you'll just always think, because a person that's paranoid and thinking they're being watched, especially when people are writing about you and you're as famous as she is, like you get this eerie feeling like you're being watched. So there's a lot of angles, and there'd be like, it would zoom out and there's a huge city, so anybody could be looking into her window with like a telescope or something. And so you get that eerie feeling like, ooh, maybe I am being stalked right now.
And I mean, there's shots of like looking at the building and seeing her room. Yeah, it's just lots of things that they did to give that feeling.
Yeah, toy with our emotions.
Yeah.
And we quoted Dwight. We just recently been watching The Office, and he says when they're trying to figure out a detective, like who's the killer, is it the person it's never the person they're closest to. I mean, sorry,
that you most expect or least expect. It's the person you most medium expect.
Yes. And that was totally what happened in this, because Rumi was way off our radar.
Well, I thought she was the least expected.
Maybe. I don't know.
You think she was medium expected?
I honestly can't say, because I hadn't expected her at all. But and the guy, the deformed guy, you would think, oh, it's definitely him. And then when you see him writing about the blog, I'm like, oh, but I don't think he's the killer. But turns out he was, but he's being manipulated by a girl, right?
Well, no, he wasn't writing the blog. He was being manipulated by Rumi by the words of the blog. But
it looked like he was writing the blog.
No, that time that he was talking and it sounded like Rumi's, or it sounded like the Mima's voice coming out of him. It's because he was reading I think now that it's because he was reading the blog and imagining Rima saying the things.
Rima? You mean you're mixing? You just said Mima and you mix Rumi's name together.
Yeah, he's reading it and imagining in his head Mima's voice, and that's why I think that's the purpose of that shot. And then there's another shot where the ghost of Mima is floating around in his room while he's reading the blog, and I think that's because just how much the blog is influencing him. It's as if the blog has this power that looks like the way that the ghost is like, rubbing his shoulder to be like, will you do this for me?
Yeah, and he's so obsessed, and you can see from the very beginning, like he's not easily manipulated, but easily like he's just so devoted to her. Like he even started a fight in the crowd with those people, and you could just tell if he had the wrong person influencing him, thinking it was Mima, he would do anything for her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
like he literally got pummeled constantly in the crowd for her. Remember at the opening scene? Yeah. Kind of shows like how far he's willing to go to protect this girl. Yeah.
So like there were the other big thing that I was just like thinking about, like after the movie and everything, and during the movie, was this whole internal battle that Mima had with, I'm changing careers. Is this the right move? And who are you? She's kind of asking that of herself. Like, who am I? What are these new choices I'm making that I know are morally wrong and that the old me would never do? And can I live with myself being this way? All these things. And then now the second big thing is what you were mentioning just a few minutes ago, of this whole idea of even she was having the same mentality that so many other people were having, of there's this ideal version of Mima, and I want to be that, like, or okay, sorry, let me back up. I was so distracted. No. Where was I? Oh, sorry, it's just come all back to me. Okay, there's this ideal version of Mima, and that this version is the best version of her, the good version, and you see that the other characters were like, wait, what? No, she can't not be this way anymore. We refuse to let that happen. Basically, we are, and it's what you said. It's this idea of living vicariously through other people because of the internet or things similar to the internet. These people are like, no, what? This was giving me so much joy to live vicariously through pop singer version of Mima. I am not liking actress version, and then it led to the whole she's an imposter, killer, and kill everyone around her. But even Mima was also going through that where she's like, oh no, it has to be this ideal version of me. And I was a little irked before, but now I'm okay with it. I was a little irked before. By the very end, after they figure everything out, after Rumi is in a psych ward and Mima is like apparently really big and famous by then and comes back to visit, and the nurses are like, oh my gosh, she's so big. And then you see like Mima leave, and it's short. You only see a little bit of Mima, but Mima seems to be doing way better emotionally. Her emotional health seems to be great, but almost like she seems to be a little cocky. And I was wondering, like, before I was like, oh no, I wish they would have explored that more, because it really is a thing that, fame can get to your head, and then there's a whole host of issues you're dealing with there. But now I'm okay with it, because I think it all comes together of like, she has to be okay with herself, and we all have to be okay with ourselves, and ourselves are not the ideal version that we might create on our internet blogs or idolize and we imagine these pop singers are perfect humans, or when we idolize people and think that they are perfect and that that's the only thing that's acceptable, then we're going to be like miserable that we don't measure up to that. Or we're going to be living in La La Land and living vicariously and maybe developing multiple personalities or whatever, or doing crazy things that we never thought we would do, like that guy that was willing to kill for. Anyways, yeah, I'm like loving it now. I love that insight you brought.
I was also thinking it's because of the crazy fan thing. I was thinking of that one you showed me. He loves me not.
Yeah.
Also,
she idolized him and idolized the relationship, which was not a relationship at all. He hardly knew her. Yeah.
But Rumi actually had somewhat of a relationship with her.
Right. But you see, it makes so much sense later. Like, oh yeah, Rumi is the agent that you thought had her back, but really she only had her, in her mind, her version of Mima. She only had that version's back. And it was to the point that she was unwilling to accept Mima's changes and becoming a different person, essentially. And then Rumi's loyalty she was done. She didn't really care about Mima. She cared about the idea.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Duel. It's like she has this vision of her, and it's like you can't be anything else other than that. And if you start to lean some way, then she started going back to the blog and created this, like, she started making up lies and stuff. Like, she would only do that because, I mean, it's the same thing if you get on, like, Twitter and, like, the people that were defending Will Smith, it's like, they were so biased and love him so much. Like, oh, he only did this because of this. And
right,
like, right. I get there's always two sides to a story, and, it's okay to give people the benefit of the doubt.
In this movie, we know that she was stretching the truth or just flat out lying when she was saying that the reason that Mima, the actress that's becoming an actress, did this was because of so-and-so, and that wasn't true. It was Mima choosing on her own or whatever.
Well, her essentially the girl started writing her internal thoughts, which is like, no, I didn't choose, because the other girl's like, she was forced by the director to do this, and she's like, no, I chose to do it.
Yeah.
And she chose this lifestyle, and she just started going down a path that didn't align with the other girl's morals and decisions, and she just didn't find what she was doing okay. And so I found that so fascinating. I don't know.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm all about a message of like, we should never change and improve ourselves. It's just, I guess it's clicking to me, like, and I like the idea of, don't beat yourself up over being different than an earlier version of yourself that maybe was more innocent and that you liked more. We can still, despite the things in our lives that we do regret.
Are you defending Miley Cyrus?
What, did I sound like one of her
No.
songs now describing her life or
No.
something?
Well, yeah, it just sounded like you were describing her because she started out as like Hannah Montana, all this sweet.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
She's a perfect example of this. It's just like started out very sweet music or
Yeah.
Disney girl, and then chose this like, which is actually funny because in her life it started at Disney Channel, right? And then she switched to music career.
Mm-hmm.
And this show, she had a music career, and when she chose the film industry,
That's when
that
she got
changed
more
her.
adult and corrupt a little bit.
Yeah.
Not corrupt, but okay, yeah. Oh, you know what? That probably, honestly, because Disney stars get so much of that. This thing that we see in that movie that we just saw, the one movie we're talking about, what's it called? Perfect Blue. Wait, no, I am so committed to the idea of you being a good, innocent person that I loved you on Disney, you know, and maybe because she knew those messages before she started to brand herself differently or whatever, and they probably came at her even stronger as she was starting to brand herself. She was probably getting a lot of criticism and pushback for changing. That probably, like, the rebel side of her probably was like, okay, I'm gonna do it even more.
Yeah, there's an episode on Black Mirror about that where essentially like they turn her into a robot, and they're like, this is how you need to be. And by the end, she was trying to like find her own voice. And I get it. It's like you don't want to be pigeonholed into something,
right,
or told how you are, because at a certain point you'll look in the mirror and be like, who am I? You know. So it's just like I don't know. And that's why I thought that was interesting. There was a few shots of like mirrors, and she kept looking at herself, and she couldn't recognize herself because she kept seeing the reflection of the alternate life she could have had.
Yeah.
Or the life that people wanted her to have, and it's like, no, this is who you're supposed to be, and people got all upset, but that's like, whoa, I want to find my own voice. Yeah, sorry, I was just adding to what you said because I liked it a lot.
And it adds to why it would just be so hard to be famous. It'd be so hard to be a celebrity, especially at a young age, because while you're figuring yourself out, everyone is watching and weighing in their opinion. No. Figuring out who you are in life is hard enough. Like, I would have hated to have.
Yeah, and telling you how they think you should be.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my goodness.
Yikes. Yeah, especially when you're trying to like figure yourself out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has got to be so hard. So actually, yeah, I think this podcast episode is all about, hey guys, let's give a little more slack to Miley Cyrus.
Oh jeez, I do not care.
I really remember that song you showed me. Oh my goodness, it's such a good song that she did.
You took a slide away.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Don't remember the words.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways,
I like covers of Wrecking Ball. Anyways.
Well, oh jeez.
Did I get you distracted thinking about
I don't want to think
Miley
about her
Cyrus and
anymore.
Hannah Montana?
But I love this movie. I loved it. Yeah, it was great. I highly recommend it to people that like serial killer movies.
Well, or you could be like me and close your eyes during those parts and still enjoy the story. Oh my goodness, the story and your insights. I'm just feeling so great about it even more, and I honestly would want to watch it again, like notice even more details, because there's so many things that you miss just because it goes quickly sometimes, and then secondly that you miss because you don't know the ending when you're first watching it.
Amazing. Bye.
Bye-bye.